Every story teaches a lesson, but only if you truly listen. And today's story about Professor Michael Bennett will not only open your mind, but also help you learn English through the language of life itself. Professor Michael Bennett was known throughout Westfield University for his unusual teaching methods. With salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he had been teaching Philosophy 101 for more than 20 years. On a crisp autumn morning, he entered the lecture hall. 78 students were chatting as usual, but the moment he walked in, silence filled the room. Something about him felt different today. "Good morning, everyone," he said softly, placing his worn leather briefcase on the desk. "Today, we're having a surprise test." Groans echoed across the hall. Sarah Jenkins, a hard-working student sitting in the front row, quickly flipped through her notebook.
"But, Professor, you didn't mention any test in the syllabus,"
she exclaimed. "That's why it's called a surprise," Professor Bennett replied with a gentle smile. "Don't worry, it won't affect your grade." From the back row, Marcus Thompson, a scholarship athlete, whispered to his friend, "Then what's the point?" He had stayed up late practicing for the upcoming championship, and the last thing he wanted was another test. Meanwhile, Layla Patel, an international student known for her analytical mind, straightened her posture and prepared to give her best. "Please clear your desks except for a pen," the professor instructed as he began handing out papers face down. The only sounds were the rustling of papers and the zipping of backpacks. Once everyone had received a sheet, Professor Bennett said, "You may now turn over your papers. You have 30 minutes. As the students flipped their papers, confusion spread across the room. Each sheet was completely blank, except for one small black dot in the very center. Professor called David Chen from the middle row. I think there's been a printing mistake." "There's no mistake," said Professor Bennett calmly. "Your task is simple. Write about what you see. Be thorough. Be honest." The room fell silent again. Marcus rolled his eyes. Sarah started writing immediately. Isla examined the page carefully before she began. For the next 30 minutes, only the scratching of pens could be heard. Some students wrote pages of analysis. Others struggled to write even a paragraph. Finally, Professor Bennett said, "Time's up. Pass your papers forward." He collected the sheets, glanced through them, and smiled. "Now," he said, "let's see what you all wrote." He read aloud from one paper. "The black dot is in the center of the page about 5 millimeters wide, creating a strong contrast against the white background." Another paper said, "The dot seems to represent loneliness and isolation, a symbol of emptiness." Sarah's response read, "The human mind focuses on the black dot because it stands out from the empty space around it." Marcus's answer was short. "It's just a black dot on white paper. That's it." After reading several papers, Professor Bennett put them down and looked around the room. "Interesting," he said quietly. 78 students, 78 papers, and every single one of you wrote about the black dot. Not a single one mentioned the white page. He lifted one sheet and continued. "This page is about 8.5 by 11 inches, over 93 square inches of white space. Yet all of you focused on the tiny black dot that covers less than 1% of it. A few students exchanged thoughtful looks.
Layla's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Sarah looked embarrassed.
This said, Professor Bennett is exactly how most of us live our lives. The white space represents all that is good. Your health, your youth, your education, your home, your family, your opportunities, and the beauty of life itself. All these blessings make up more than 99% of your existence. But what do we focus on? The small black dots, the one problem, the one failure, the one disappointment. These tiny dark spots steal our attention while the vast white space of blessings goes unnoticed. He paused and let his words sink in. I'm not saying we should ignore our problems. The black dots are real. But when we let them take over our entire vision, we forget how much light still surrounds us. He smiled gently and added, For next week, I want you to try something. Each night, write down 3 white spaces.
3 blessings you often take for granted. Notice how this simple habit can change your entire outlook. When class ended, no one rushed out. Instead, quiet conversations filled the air. Outside the hall, Sarah said to Isla and David, I completely missed the point. I wrote 2 pages just describing that dot. David laughed. We all did. That's why it was such a brilliant lesson. Later that evening, Professor Bennett sat alone in his office, rereading the papers with a peaceful smile. He remembered how his own teacher had once given him the same exercise when he was struggling in life. It had changed his perspective forever. On his desk sat a small framed page, a simple white sheet with 1 black dot in the center. A daily reminder to focus on the white space, the countless blessings that fill our lives. In life, what you choose to see defines what you feel. Focus on your blessings, not your burdens, and you'll realize that even a small change in perspective can light up your entire world.